Classic Restos is proudly brought to you by Shannon's Insurance, National Parts Depot and Penrite Oil. Hello and welcome to another exciting episode of Classic Restos, based in the Detroit area of the United States of America. And of course, it's not possible without the continued support from Shannon's Insurance, National Parts Depot, based in the United States, and Penrite Oil. I can't impress upon you strongly enough how important good insurance is. Shannon's Insurance are there to help us. Why not pick up the phone and give them a call on 134646. They also have a tremendous website at shannons.com.au. There's promotions there. There's often trips where you can travel overseas, and you can also sign up and become a member of the Shannons Club. National Parts Depot are also based here in the United States of America and are proud sponsors of Classic Restos. When it comes time to rebuilding your classic GM and Ford American car, National Parts Depot is very hard to beat. They have a 3 million part inventory waiting to assist you, and they ship to Australia and New Zealand every day of the week. To find out more information, check them out at npdlink.com. I get excited about great products. That's why I get excited about Penrite. Penrite is an Australian-owned company. Incredible people to deal with fantastic products. When it comes time for oil and coolant, you're hard to go past Penrite. Check them out online at penriteoil.com.au, and proud sponsors of Classic Restos. And on today's show, I've travelled around 2.5 hours from Detroit to a place called Hickory's Corner here in Michigan to the Gilmore Car Museum. Come with me now as we take a step back in time to appreciate the efforts and the passion of Donald and Genevieve Gilmore. The Gilmore Car Museum began back in 1963. It started as the hobby of Donald S. Gilmore when his wife Genevieve gave him an antique car for his birthday, a 1920 Pierce Arrow project car. With the help of some friends, the car was placed under a tent and a full restoration followed. The hobby soon grew into a collection of over 30 automobiles. Mr. Gilmore purchased 90 acres of farm property and had several historic barns dismantled piece by piece and moved to the site. It was Mr. Gilmore's wife who suggested the idea of turning the collection into a museum where future generations could enjoy the restored cars for years to come. Today the site includes 8 historic barns, a recreated 1930s service station, a small town train station, and nearly 3 miles of paved roads. It isn't uncommon for the guests to catch a glimpse of one of the vintage cars or the authentic London double-decker bus. The Gilmores established a non-profit foundation and opened the museum to the public for the first time on Sunday, July 31st, 1966. Donald Gilmore passed away in 1979 and Genevieve in 1990, but the legacy they began continues to grow. As soon as you walk through the door and you are greeted with the revolving display, as soon as you turn left, you walk through these endless galleries. Here we have some Fords. We've got a 1950 Cadillac. There's a Studebaker behind me. The quality of these cars are all concourse. It is unbelievable. I've seen a lot of things on Classic Restos in my time of doing the TV show. This, my friends, is up there with the very best. is amazingly endless. You walk a bit further, turn left, find a board. Behind me is another section, the American Legends, Hot Rods and Customs section. Have a look at this. How amazing is this? You walk out of one gallery and across the street you're faced with a Ford dealership replicated back to the 1920s. It is amazing. This place just keeps on going and going. The Model A Ford Foundation has recreated a 1929 Ford dealership, complete with gas pumps and service bay, to tell the story of Henry Ford's fantastic Model A. Moving through the magnificent Gilmore Car Museum, I'm finding it hard to put words to this. We have Michael now, the Executive Director. How are you, Michael?
I'm great. How are you, Fletch?
I'm good. Wow, what do we say? Where do we go from here?
It's kind of tough.
I've been to a lot of places and seen a lot of things on Classic Restos that this is the epitome. Incredible.
Well, thanks very much. It's really a hidden secret. A lot of people don't know about this place, but all I have to do is get them here one time, and that's all it takes.
All the museums are fantastic, but I think what's incredible with the Gilmore is the way that it's spread out and just multiple barns and, just different allocated areas for so many different things. We've got the fuel station, we've got a diner, we've got beautiful property. I mean, the list goes on and on and on.
We can have some of the most marvelous car shows you've ever seen in these grounds. They can be big, they can be small, they can be any size at all, but we have great fun here every year.
You've said that line a few times before, haven't you, Mike?
I sure have.
Now, this particular barn we're standing in here, just tell us a little bit about the history here.
Well, this came from a mint farm about 60 miles away, and this farm produced all the mint for Wrigley Spearmint gum, which many people are familiar with. It's very historic. I think it was built in the 1880s, and it still survives today. And I think what's in it now is better than hay any day.
Who would have ever thought years ago that the old chewing gum factory would have been turned into a preservation house for these marvellous cars?
Well, why not, Fletch? Why not? No better use.
Michael, when people come to the Gilmore Car Museum, what can they expect to see?
Our collections are really diverse and really eclectic. We focus primarily on American automobiles, but there's a little European as well. We have the Classic Car Club of America Museum here, which includes just about everything. We decided some time ago that if we focus just in one area, we can do that very well.
Where do all the cars come from?
Well, most of the cars are owned by the museum. The majority are. We have special exhibits where we have a lot of cars here on loan, which we have right now with the traditional hot rod and customs exhibit. We have loan cars for our Hudson exhibit, and for those special exhibits, people are more than happy to loan their cars. Otherwise, most of the cars belong here to the museum.
The expansion of the museum is exciting as well. There's more construction across the way. What's going to be happening there soon?
Right there, that's the new Lincoln Motor Car Museum, and across the street from that, breaking ground this month, will be the new Cadillac LaSalle Museum as well.
You guys are amazing. Michael, thank you so much for having us here today. It means a lot to us coming from Australia. It's good to hear that more and more Aussies are starting to come to this part of the United States, which is good, and the Fletch Tours in 2014 will hopefully help that as well.
I hope so, Fletch. Good to see you. Thank you very much.
Cadillac, the flagship of the General Motors marque, and so deservedly has its own gallery here as well. Hope you're really enjoying today's episode of Classic Restos here at the Gilmore Museum in Michigan, United States of America. Of course, thanks to Shannon's Insurance, Penrite, Oil and National Parts Depot. Stay in your favourite chair. We'll be back with more after this. interesting when we look back at car manufacturers, it wasn't always the big three that used to take the automotive spotlight. Prestigious car manufacturer Pierce Arrow ran from 1901 through to 1938, and they have their own gallery as well. Moving through, got one of the guides now. We've got Dave. How are you, Dave?
Just fine, Fletch.
That's good. Now, this is another barn here. What's in here? Again, simply amazing. This is one of your favourite cars. Do you want to tell us why?
Well, this is the classic Car Club of America barn, and this is one of my favorite cars. This is a Mercedes 1938 540K, and it has a unique history. Back in 1938, it was bought or issued to or whatever to somebody in Germany. And when the war started going south on those people, the owner of the car buried it in his garage basement, bricked up the wall, filled in with dirt, planted a garden. Nobody knew the car was there. When the Russians came in and occupied, they didn't know the car was there. Once the Berlin Wall came down, the car was unearthed and sold, and it's now owned by one of our benefactors. And it's been totally restored. It's the only one in existence of this model, and it's worth a lot of money. It's just a beautiful car to look at, and it's one of my favorites.
What sort of figure, Dave? Just an estimate. What do you reckon it'll be worth?
In today's market, it's probably worth probably somewhere in the neighborhood of $10, $11 million.
Can we come to some payment agreement where I can pay off my deposit?
Well, we'd have to check your credit.
Dave, it must have been somebody fairly high up the ranks back in 1938 in Germany. That could have almost been a military personnel, was one way of putting it.
You would think probably some government official of some sort.
Dave, there are so many parts to an automobile, but the old bonnet emblem, whoever talks about a bonnet emblem? Here in this particular collection, it's as many as I've ever seen. I can't believe the die casting, the manufacture, how many different styles of bonnet emblems were made. It's extraordinary.
It sure is. We don't have them anymore for safety reasons. Apparently, you can't trust somebody to walk out in the middle of the street without getting impaled by one of these. Yeah. A fellow by the name of Marvin Tamaroff collected these over a number of years, and there's just about everything you can imagine and then some. There are Indians and women and boys and monkeys and airplanes and fish, anything you can think of. There are, they called them motor mascots back then.
Dave, I can't believe the manufacturing creativity of the time, almost to the point where, from a manufacturer standpoint today, it just could never be done again. It could never be repeated. A vehicle manufacturing company of today couldn't afford to punch out emblems like this.
I don't think so either. I think in a lot of ways it was a way for a person back then to personalize his car. They didn't have too many accessories on the market for cars back then. Most of them were mechanical. But a man could put one of these on the front of his car and go down the street, and nobody had anything like it.
I was always led to believe that obviously all emblems stood for something, but like an eagle up front could have meant freedom and free flying and all that type of thing.
It could mean a number of different things. You'll see over there, there's airplanes, and behind me there's Norsemen and Romans and just about anything you can imagine. There were a number of them for Lindbergh when he flew across the Atlantic. A lot of them were made basically with current events in line. There's some with Zeppelin, some with barrage balloons. You name it, they're there.
Could you imagine these on cars of today? I mean, I hate to say it, but they'd be stolen.
They would be stolen, probably, unfortunately. That's where we're at nowadays, I guess. But back then, it was a way for somebody to personalize their car and in some cases make a statement, whether it was political or whatever.
Yeah. Well, okay, and on that note, there's some cars just over the back there. Can you take us down and show us one of those?
Sure, there's a number of cars back there you might want to look at.
Okay, I hope you're really enjoying the Gilmore Car Museum on today's show. It really is something truly amazing. Let's go and have a look at these cars around the back here. You run out of words and lines and, what do you say, sentences to describe cars like this, all under one roof.
It's hard to do. I've probably been in here 150, 200 times, and every time I come in here I see something different.
Speaking of which, the car behind us, now tell us the year model, tell us what it is and what you know of the car.
This is a 1934 Auburn two-door sedan made in Auburn, Indiana. It's owned by the same gentleman that owns 4 other 1934 Auburns, different models. And they're all painted in the same paint scheme. They're all restored. Everything is perfect. Some of these cars came out of scrap yards. Some of them were barn finds, meaning they sat for years and years and years. And it's just incredible to see the precision that went into these cars. Sometimes I think of them as statues or sculptures rather than cars.
Being top-end cars too, they weren't high-mileage cars, a lot of them.
No, not very high mileage. People who had them quite often didn't have to drive. Somebody was driving them. So a lot of these cars were made for pleasure rather than work.
Considering the time these cars were built too, I mean, we're talking back in the Depression. Times were bad, but there's always been that wealthy belt.
Well, there always will be people with money, and there will always be people with not too much money, unfortunately. These cars were towards the upper end rather than the lower end. Instead of buying a Ford or a Chevrolet, they bought Auburns or Cords or some other type of high car, Packards, Lincolns.
And Dave, these cars are still driven, right?
Some of them are. Matter of fact, quite a few of them are driven. It helps to maintain the cars and rather than sit and grow rusty and have the engines freeze up. They are driven. The oil and the fluids are changed regularly. So, yeah, they are used, and it's quite a deal to see them out on the road moving about.
Good on you, Dave. Again, thank you very much.
Thank you, Fletch.
Classic Restos episodes are available in the DVD boxed sets along with other Classic Restos merchandise when you visit classicrestos.com.au. And while you're there, check out the major sponsors as well. They're fantastic people and they're waiting to help you. Hope you're enjoying today's show. Back with more in just a moment. Getting around the Gilmore Car Museum, and how cool is this? They have their own diner. Formerly the Blue Moon Diner, built in 1941, transported here in 2004. Let's go inside and take a closer look, and we'll catch up with Ellen, one of the head chefs. Inside the diner, how are you, Ellen?
I'm great. How are you, Fletch?
I'm good. You enjoying yourself?
It's a great day. Yeah, beautiful outside, great customers.
Absolutely. You work in a tremendous place. To think that it's an authentic diner back in the day, 1941, how cosy is it?
Oh, yeah, it's great, especially on a rainy day when you got the soup and chili going, and, you know, it's just a great ambiance in here because on restoration they really didn't play with a lot of stuff. They left the floor, they left the tile, of course the linoleum in the back that we trip over all the time. No, I'm just kidding. But seriously, all the appointments are original as could be, and we even have folks going back to the restrooms, and little do they realize that the windows are wide open. They can see, and they're just for exhibition in the phone booth. But it's a pretty cool place, and it brings you back in time.
Back in 1941, would this have been an above average size diner? Because they used to make them pretty small, didn't they?
Yeah, I mean, they started off in boxcars, I think, diner. But I would say that this is a pretty good size. But don't forget, they probably had storage out back, and they probably had coolers out back, and then really not sure how much room they had here for storage. So it's, as you can see, it's a pretty tight space. So we're lucky that we have storage downstairs, and it's about the same size as
what I love the Art Deco style. I mean, as you said, the original tiles on the floor. And how cool are these little stools here?
I know, they're great. You know, the only thing they're missing is a back, but I don't know when those came about. I mean, basically, you know, you think of a blue plate special, and it's a meat and it's 3 vegetables. And basically you want people to come in, sit down, eat, and leave, so you can keep the flow. So we don't want to make it too comfortable, but, you know, it was really sort of made for, you know, you come in, you sit, you have your lunch, you have your coffee, and you go back to work, you know, and you have your blue plate special or whatever, your breakfast.
Certainly has a feel all of its own. Do you know what part of the United States it was actually in operation?
It was in Connecticut, Meriden, Connecticut, and for many years, and then it was sort of sitting idle for many years, and then taken to Cleveland for restoration. The rest of it was done here, and a lot of it was done by volunteers as well. So it's a group effort kind of thing here.
Well, may I thank you on the behalf of keeping the tradition alive, Alan. You're doing a wonderful job here. The staff are awesome. The food's great. Coffee's good. What more could you want?
Hey, you know what's a diner? Doesn't have to be diner foods necessarily taste bad, you know. So we were trying to make a lot of house-made stuff here and put our 2 cents into the food, and we love it.
I'll let you get back to making milkshakes. Good on you, Alan.
Hey, thanks a lot. Nice to see you, Fletch.
Well, that was just some of the Gilmore Car Museum, and I hope you've enjoyed it on this week's episode of Classic Restos. And if you consider a Fletch tour in 2014, this very place is on the agenda. Now, classicrestos.com.au, that's the website that you need for the DVD boxed sets of the show, along with other Classic Restos merchandise as well. And while you're there, check out the major sponsors and as to how they can help you. They're great people to deal with. Until next week, as I say at the end of every show, no matter where you're watching Classic Restos from, please ride and drive safe. I'm Fletch, and I thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to like Classic Restos on Facebook. Facebook.com/Classic Restos TV. And episodes can be seen at shannons.com.au. Classic Restos is proudly brought to you by Shannon's Insurance, National Parts Depot and Penrite Oil.